One.
Good afternoon and welcome to Salford City Council's event today. During this session, we're going to share with you our experiences and responses to what was a really critical ask on us as a local authority to deliver financial support to businesses and our residents and to protect the council's income during the pandemic and beyond that. The pandemic put a huge strain on a large proportion of our population and our local economy, and it was a big challenge to support those affected and to protect our resources so we could carry on delivering our critical day-to-day services, and those were even more in demand now, as well as delivering a COVID response. So during this session, we're going to reflect on those asks, the journey that we've been on, and how that's made us more resilient for the future. If anyone's got any questions as we go along, please pop them in the chat for us. So, first off, to do some introductions and just to let you know what each of us will be sharing with you today. Jane, do you want to go first?
Hi, thanks, Penny. Good afternoon. I'm Jane Betts, the Service Manager for Business Rates, and I've worked for Salford City Council for 35 years, specialising in revenues and benefits, including some of my career within the digital and data and technology, managing the core systems used in the administration of revenues and benefits. I'm going to talk about how we were responsible for managing various business grant schemes and delivering the funding to eligible businesses.
Hi, my name's Tiffany. I'm a service manager at the benefits team here at Salford, and I've worked on the benefits team for almost 34 years. And during that time, I've seen a lot of changes, but not probably as many as we've seen in the last 15 months during the COVID time. My team processes and maintains applications for housing benefits, council tax reduction, discretionary housing payment, council tax support, blue badges, and most recently the test and trace payments, which is what I will be speaking to you about today.
Okay, and I'm Penny Mitchell, the Service Manager for Council Tax at Salford. I've been with Salford for almost 3 years now, and I've worked in local government revenues and benefits for just over 30 years. I'm going to share how we worked hard to make sure that we maximised our collection following a significant change to the way that the court service had to conduct hearings under restrictions and lockdowns. So we're going to start with setting the scene for you to give you a more detailed idea of what we were tasked with, what challenges we faced, how we set off making key decisions on how to deliver all of those asks. Jane, with business grants playing such a huge role in protecting local economies and helping businesses to survive and reopen, do you want to give us some background first on what your team was facing?
Yeah, thanks, Penny. So on the 11th of March last year, in response to the coronavirus, the government announced support for small businesses and businesses in the retail and hospitality leisure field. The support was in the form of 2 grants, and the local authority was responsible for delivering the funding to eligible businesses. On the 1st of April last year, Salford received over 47 million for the cost of the grant. The grant scheme offered a lifeline to businesses struggling to survive due to COVID shutdown. Since this first announcement, there's been a further 14 variations of the support grant schemes implemented as we entered a period of national and local restrictions to manage the spread of coronavirus. To date, we've received over 91 million to pay out, the most recent being the Restart grant introduced on the 3rd of March this year to support businesses as COVID restrictions started to be eased. I mention the dates as I feel they're so significant. Back on the 11th of March last year, when I was interpreting the guidance around grant administration, none of us could have foreseen what was ahead and the longevity of the grant scheme. So back in March last year, we were finishing off business rates annual billing and year-end tasks, and overnight we had to change the way we lived, worked, and needing to work in new and different ways. Add to this the business grants being announced and linked to business rates administration. We were having to interpret complex and changing rules and guidance. Public announcements were being made before we'd got full details of schemes. We were managing various schemes with different criteria and different payment frequencies as well. And they also had different closure dates for applications being received. The initial challenge was identifying our businesses. It was an unknown caseload. and determining eligibility to the grants, working to tight timeframes and pressures to start paying the grants out as soon as possible whilst minimising risk. Limited resources really was a big factor. All but the discretionary risk schemes were managed by the business rates team while still supporting the business as usual tasks. Added to the complexity of grant schemes to administer, staff had other personal challenges, adapting to the different ways of working from home, isolation, connectivity issues, digital skills, training delivery. We received high volumes of applications and there was a real urgency to support businesses financially as quickly as possible. Fraud and error played a significant part in our process mapping and was initially viewed as compromising on the performance and speed of paying out the grants. Out of date and missing information was a big problem. The initial grant scheme for small business grants and retail, hospitality and leisure eligibility criteria that actually generated increased business rates administration and data cleansing requirements, which is still ongoing. And this impacted on the decision making and delays in grants processing, even the basics of making contact to a potential eligible business just because premises were closed. So not having property inspectors out in the field made the decision making challenging in itself. Using other data sources and intelligent methods were essential. So we needed to break down barriers around data sharing and needed to work across disciplines in real time. Customer frustrations as well, understanding the complex guidance, desperation from businesses and the volume of increased complaints around very much challenging decisions that were made. So Di, as expert in supporting residents on low income, do you want to talk us through what was different with this and what it meant for your team?
Yeah, thanks, Jane. So it was announced in September of 2020 that with effect from the 28th of September, there'd be a legal obligation for a person who was tested to self-isolate if they'd been told to from the NHS test and trace. So this could have been because they've tested positive for COVID, or they've been named as a close contact of someone that had tested positive. So to help those affected, a £500 payment was introduced. And to be eligible for this payment, applicants would need to meet mandatory criteria, which included that they had to have received the notification from the NHS and they would receive a unique reference number. They needed to be on low incomes and eligible for certain income benefits. They had to be employed or self-employed and be unable to work from home and lose income due to not being able to work. So this £500 payment was there to help ensure that the applicant provided for financially so that they could comply with the requirements to self-isolate and help protect the public health. So local authorities were also tasked with setting up a discretionary scheme and certain mandatory criteria like the support scheme, but excluding the need for the applicant to be in receipt of qualifying income benefits. But nonetheless, they had to be on low incomes. As with most things with COVID, there wasn't much time between the scheme being announced to it actually going live. There was just a few days before its introduction, which put pressure on local authorities to set up schemes with very tight timescales and so we had to decide whether we either wanted to purchase a system or whether we went with something that had been that was an in-house system. We knew what we wanted from the system. We knew that we wanted a front-end system which was simple to the customer for them to apply and to be able to upload any supporting information. And we wanted it easy for the processing staff to be able to award the payments. So early guidance confirmed that applications should be assessed within a 48-hour of being received and any payments made within 3 days. So it was really important that we were ready and able to accept applications as soon as possible. So we quickly decided that we were going to go with an existing in-house system and develop it for exactly what we needed. With no time to recruit, we would need to depend on our current staff to take on the work, and a project would need to be managed closely alongside other priorities from the day job. In addition to the application for test and trace, as £500 payment would be subject to tax, we would need to be prepared to deal with other areas of providing data to HMRC. We'd also need to be prepared for other areas of work such as customer inquiries, complaints, freedom of information requests and so on. Due to the administration of this work being funded, it was also important to build in a reporting facility which would allow us to collect the data that would be needed for returns to government bodies such as the Department of Health and Social Care. So test and trace was a new area for absolutely everybody, and we would need to make sure that our websites were informative and our residents were up to date with clear information. Communications had to be shared through social media and Facebook and Twitter, etc., and also keep our own staff up to date with guidance and any changes. We wanted to build in support for those customers who may not be digitally enabled, and we were able to do this through our Spirit of Salford helpline. And we're also signposting customers to any other support that may have been available should their application for a payment be declined. We also felt it important to build in the option for those who were declined a payment, additional support from our Welfare Rights and Debt Advice Service and also our Salford Assist Service, who could help with support during this difficult period. So taking on the task of test and trace, it comes with other risks. So mainly the day job. Any delays in processing claims was of a concern. Managing priorities closely as all payments that we administered, whether that was test and trace payments, housing benefit, council tax reduction, etc. Any delays in them kinds of payments was really, put financial strains on our customers. We also noticed that customers applying for test and trace may not give us the same information that we may have had on their housing benefit applications. So we needed to be aware that we would have to investigate some cases. As with any area of work, especially with our staff working from home, we very much relied heavily on broadband. And as we're all aware, if broadband fails us, then we can't do our job. It was also difficult knowing what our caseload was going to be because test and trace payments were obviously for those people who tested positive. So it very much depended on the infection rate within our city. And as you know, we've had peaks and troughs over the last 15 months. So Penny, the role of securing council income was critical. So what were our revenues teams facing at this time?
Okay, thanks, Di. Yeah, we've had some tough years in the history of council tax and business rates, but I don't think there has been a tougher one financially, in my experience anyway, for local authorities, residents and businesses alike. Protecting council income at the same time as prioritising huge numbers of new claims for reliefs and reductions, making use of funding that we've been given from the government for hardship purposes in order to maximise residents' income was obviously a priority for us. It was hard to balance our financial and our vital delivery service needs when so many of our residents and businesses were facing what's been unprecedented uncertainty, risks to their finances and of course risks to their health. That relationship between local authority, residents and businesses became a really key one, because we were asked to deliver so many of those key government initiatives like you've heard, business grants and test and trace support. And of course it's already been mentioned, we were doing all of this at home. We went home in the middle of March and we're still at home now. We were really quick to launch a holistic and direct help and support offer to residents by setting up our Spirit of Salford helpline. We moved all of our face-to-face drop-ins that would normally take place at the gateway centres to a virtual offer through our cloud coffee and chat service. And if anyone missed our session this morning with two of our gateway managers, hopefully there'll be a video of that available later. We did have some hardship funding to offer out to our most vulnerable to help them pay their bills. We were administering millions of pounds of business grants and relief to help businesses financially. We took a softer reminder approach when anyone got behind. We've fully utilised our Get Back on Track offer that existed already. You know, some people were struggling financially, but also there were an awful lot of people just uncertain about their financial future, even if they were okay financially right now. We couldn't ignore the fact that we have a duty to collect income, and not all of our residents or businesses were in a difficult position. So we had to think and work differently to protect our income. And we've also got a responsibility not to put residents or businesses into debt just by delaying actions and not doing anything. You know, old debt is harder to pay. Using the court is a key process for us and always has been, but of course the courts closed, and they closed very suddenly at the start of the last financial year, which left, you know, council income a bit in limbo at the time. We made contact really quickly with the court to explore the option of possibly moving to virtual hearings. You know, the court service has been around for a very, very long time, and it's entirely geared up for personal attendance. So virtual hearings was a bit of a leap of faith. Before we even got that confirmation, though, that the court service was going to run with a virtual service, we knew we were going to, whatever we were going to do, we were going to need to make it slick in order to reduce the impact on resources for us and to minimise the customer experience so that it was a positive one for them. We were really keen on virtual hearings. Spending months at home, well kitted out and engaging digitally was our new normal. And this opportunity to move a very entrenched process online was something we were actually looking forward to. So when the court service did announce it in August last year that they were ready to go virtual, they then told us that we were going to have to host a customer triage period in advance of every hearing. So that was the new thing that we were going to have to put into place. And they were clear that that offer couldn't just be a telephony one. So in Salford, naturally, we went straight for a combined digital and telephony approach. It is a legal process, so it was going to have to be underpinned by totally robust reporting capabilities. The court was going to need to be satisfied that we'd undertaken it properly and that any manual counting or recording just felt too risky for us. There were some really great opportunities to make changes. We know that the quicker, easier and better it is to interact with us, the more likely it is that somebody will and will get a resolution and a positive experience. It's harder to get all the information we need talking face-to-face or over the phone, and it's very easy to miss important details. Digital contact from customers in Salford was already good, but it rose pretty dramatically during the lockdowns, and this was a really good opportunity to expand our digital offer, gathering everything we needed, making a self-service offer to those that like that, and offer a much more low-key, minimal contact service. Not everybody enjoys discussing things in person. Not everyone can easily take time off work to travel or to make phone calls. From our work in the past with the Poverty Truth Commission, we know that a less direct and personal approach is definitely something that some customers prefer, and it can make the decision to engage with us much more likely. There were some risks. A solution was going to need to be user-friendly for our customers and for our staff. It needed to be reliable and flexible so that it could open and close only when we needed it and not get used at the wrong times for the wrong reasons. If the reporting wasn't accurate or we missed the contact, we jeopardised not only that hearing, but future hearings, and that would be a financial and reputational disaster for us. We had to get our offer signed off by the court before we could proceed, and we'd already made that commitment to be ready, so development time was really tight. We only get a very short space in time to do the triage and complete every inquiry. Our resources were already stretched. We had people in our team supporting other COVID responses all across the council, so we had to bolt down the process to as quick as possible with the least staff involved. So the key reason that we're all on the event together today is that the digital solutions that we built for these very different challenges all grew from a digital first stance and a drive to shape and grow in-house solutions. In Salford, we have a one-team approach, and that's driven by all of the leadership service leads. We've taken one core piece of technology and grown and adapted it for multiple different uses and grouped everything together so that if we need officers to work across all of the different functions in the future, the solutions are recognisable to them and they're consistent and enhancements can be bolted on. The technology is really simple. We use a low-code data-driven platform that's built in Oracle Apex. And what that does is it lets us build and deliver applications really quickly. Any app we create is developed around our CRM and they all link into that. If anyone is interested in hearing a more technical explanation or information about our use of apps, our DevOps team are holding an event this Friday at 11 AM. So Jane, do you want to first talk us through how you developed and used the solution for the business grants first and the journey that you took on that?
Thanks, Penny. So the initial piece of work was identifying our eligible caseload, which was data-led. Extensive data analysis was carried out, and the data sets were used to contact eligible businesses via email, text message, letter, phone calls. We didn't initially go straight into solution mode for the first wave of grants. A structured approach was taken. We needed to interpret what our requirements were, what the timelines were, and we needed to work to, and what resources really that we had to hand. Using existing infrastructure, we initially started with an online form feeding into a case management system. The administration was managed by business rates officers, and cases were manually passed through for payment on a spreadsheet, which was fed into our SAP finance system. It's important to mention because while the process brought higher error risk and impacted on process time, the system approach actually informed us for the digital solution design that followed. So the decision made by Salford to develop a digital solution to support grants administration was a real game changer for us and the right decision, and it's made a real difference. So working alongside our digital colleagues, an in-house application was built, which we named Thrive. It streamlined grants processing, it improved accuracy and ultimately prompt payments to customers. So how did the actual process work? Well, it was an intuitive online form that was the start of the journey that was developed. Responses that businesses gave to questions assisted in actually determining eligibility to the grant, and the form allowed businesses to provide the supporting evidence required to meet audit requirements. Information received from the applicant fed directly into the app and the business case record. Thrive was also a case management solution with real-time data available in a dashboard to help monitor performance and workload management. If an application was received and further information was required, this could be requested via the Thrive app. The applicant would receive an email and the option to respond and upload additional information such as bank statements, photographic evidence to support their actual submission. Thrive provided split responsibility between processing and the audit side. So an officer from the business rates team made the provisional decision. The case was then picked up by our audit team who carried out various checks before final approval for payment. With regards to the payment side, we mapped our cost centre codes from our SAP system into Thrive, and this formed part of the data required in the export file, which was produced and sent to our SAP system for processing and payment issue. This also linked into reporting. We included a post-payment upload functionality whereby data from the SAP system could go back into the Thrive system to update the customer record with payment details. This was useful for customer inquiries in relation to the case progression and when a business could expect payment. The various grant schemes brought challenges though and changes around payment frequencies, and we were able to build in various payment schedules specific to the actual grant scheme, such as we had one-off payments. We were required to administer 4 weekly cycles, monthly, and in some cases, apportion payments. Businesses who were not eligible to a grant also benefited to an email that was auto issued out of the Thrive application, but it actually signposted them to further business support for further potential help. So how did we actually get there? So whilst I've talked in detail about the actual digital solution that supported the grants processing, it is worth also recognising that the solution wasn't just about the tech, it was also about the people and building relationships. We brought together a multidisciplinary group of people to work on the end-to-end delivery of this solution. And what was great about this approach, it allowed people to work together on a solution that normally we'd find difficult to achieve without the help and support from all those different areas and specialisms from across the organisation. The squad had representation from our finance colleagues, regulatory services, digital and data, our comms team, our business team, to name a few. The squad is still active today, and frequency of stand-ups has been led really very much by various government announcements or the potential of further solution enhancements. The frequency has ranged from us having daily stand-ups, or currently we meet on a weekly basis. So on the 9th of April last year, a virtual call centre went live within 24 hours, working with colleagues in our business team. We put an ask out across the organisation for 6 volunteers to support increased business rates enquiries. A team was recruited actually of 26 volunteers from across the council, and they provided support for 8 weeks and over 4,000 calls were handled. This actually freed up capacity within the business rates team to focus on grants processing and administration. The willingness, enthusiasm and internal and external colleagues to help go that extra mile was amazing. Some of the volunteers have actually carried on working post-call handling and have been happy to be key points of contact for our businesses as new grant schemes have been announced. That same network of officers from our skills and work team, our regen team, regulatory services, they continue to support this grant administration and business support. So as the solution was developed, working practices for officers were compiled and training sessions delivered over Microsoft Teams, which was critical. The chat functionality within Microsoft Teams helped support officers with complex cases they could discuss. We could publish revised guidance for officers, changes to working practices, and it offered that instant Q&A support. Navigating our businesses through comms was also key, and that actually run alongside our Thrive development and working practices, and we tried to have as many channels to complement their digital options. More complex cases benefited from direct conversations from officers, direct to businesses, Microsoft Teams, the web chat. We've also touched on the cloud coffee and chat, all helped. And actually increased capacity, leaning on our partners such as landlords, property agents and local network groups. We created a digital, easy-to-use guide to navigate the range and complexities of the grant funding simplified for businesses. And we actually set up a hotline to a dedicated business advisor working in partnership with the Business Health Group. We could refer businesses on. We increased our comms channel through Twitter and also used it as an opportunity to promote other digital services such as e-billing. So Di, do you want to talk us through how you used what the team had actually built for the grants and adapted it for the test and trace support payments?
I will. So it was felt that due to my team already having access to current DWP data, that we would be the best place to administer these payments, the test and trace payments. So we worked closely with other teams within the Customer Services Division and discussed how we would go about setting up this and quickly put a squad together of staff and produce the necessary working processes. We also work very closely with our IT colleagues. Unfortunately, as Jane's already said, we were the fortunate ones that the hard work had already been done, as the Thrive system had already been developed for business grants. So it was pretty much a matter of working with IT to adapt and develop another thread for the test and trace payments. We told IT what we needed, from the customer making the application and providing the information, to the back office staff actually processing the applications, collecting evidence, contacting customers, an audit tier, and then before going to finance for the actual payment to be made. Initially, my staff were very concerned about picking up a new area of work and learning to use new systems, especially having the added complications of being at home. However, they quickly learned the ropes, and working as a squad, they were able to build up a support bubble using Teams as a chat room for support and general conversations of what to do if there was anything that they were unclear about. Teams has been an actual game changer for my staff. Before COVID, we'd never used Teams, but now I would say that was the main form of communication for my team. They find it very, very supportive. It reduces the fear of working alone, as there's always one of the colleagues available to call upon for support. This is even extended to support for the team after work hours, as we regularly had social teams meetings in the evening, which was fun, and it also helps those on my team who were living alone or struggling in the early days. Salford also have a support group called Digital Eagles, who've been able to offer support to colleagues with digital issues. So, in addition to our test and trace processing system, Thrive, the team have also learned how to use other systems such as the CSAS system, which is the Contact Tracing and Advice Service system, which is the Department of Health and Social Care system. And what that does is it allows us to validate the reference number that the customer is given once they're tested positive. They also started to use Barclays bank account checker, which enabled us to confirm that the bank account that the customer had actually asked the payment to go into, it actually confirmed that it was their bank account. So it did cut down on a little bit of fraud. So this payment, so when I've asked staff how they felt about the whole test and trace process, they've said that they felt that it's been very, very, very rewarding, and feel that it's been making a difference to some of our most vulnerable residents. This payment has provided financial support to customers facing financial hardship and allows them to remain at home, so it's safeguarding the whole of public health. So Penny, how did you use it for the court processes?
Thanks, Di. Yeah, this was a golden opportunity really for us to try and demonstrate that virtual courts wasn't just a temporary solution for a pandemic, but we could potentially use it going forward, if we could make it productive for all parties, and potentially it could become a new normal. Our customers are really used to our digital forms, so continuing to use those at the front end was really important for us. Looking at the Thrive app, we knew that could potentially, a new version of that could potentially work for this purpose as well. So what we did is we created, using the same technology, we created an interactive work management database. We built it so that staff could funnel the telephony contact through it too, as well as customers self-serving through it online. Really importantly for this app was the need to be able to determine the status of a contact and for the reporting to happen when all of the statuses were closed. There wouldn't need to be any manual intervention at that point, and that was important for us because we wanted the court to be satisfied that the report that they needed had been system generated and it hadn't been manually manipulated. We built the app to allow interactive two-way electronic conversation between an officer and a customer, and for staff to case manage everything for that one session. All of the sessions are stored in the app, so we could look back on sessions as and when we might need to. We could have gone just for a web chat option to satisfy that need to have an alternative contact other than just a telephony contact for a triage. But the app was going to be able to hold everything that we needed from the initiation of a customer contact, whether that was telephony or digital, the decisions that were made, preferences for proceeding to hearing or agreeing or making an arrangement, right through to producing that report that was required for legal purposes at the end. And as an added bonus, a full record of the contact and everything that was in that app could then be automatically uploaded into our main database, and that saves a huge amount of time, staff time and effort. You know, normally coming back from a call, there's a huge amount of work that goes into manually uploading all the details that you brought back with you. We only needed the app and the phone line for an hour once or twice a month. So what we've done is we've programmed both of them to make themselves live only on the relevant days and times, so they don't get misused for contact at any other time. We didn't want customers trying to use it to contact us the rest of the time, and we were missing those. Our journey had some really positive surprises in what was a really difficult year. Because we got in there early with those conversations with the court, we were so confident that we could meet whatever they were going to ask us for through an app, that meant we were ready to sign up to the first available dates, which was crucial for our cash flow. It's already been talked about that as a team we were working from home from middle of March, but we were fully equipped, and in revenues in particular we've been working with Microsoft Teams and squad working for a few years, so that idea of pulling a squad together was pretty much second nature for us. We had the basic structure and reporting capabilities because of the work that had been done on the grants, and our relationships with the DevOps team and the developers was already really strong, so we had a head start. It was refreshing, in my opinion, it was really refreshing to have such control over the development of a solution and that ability to just adapt it instantly as and when something new came along or something wasn't working. It felt really different to own that technical solution and that database management. And working over Teams, that visual sharing that you can do, you know, sharing your screen and that kind of thing. I think what that's done is it's meant that everyone working on for things that were previously done in totally different ways, these staff have now got empathy for what role is, see it as it's happening. And although some of us have never met in person, I think we probably actually know each other better than we would have if we'd done all of this in an environment. So the key really now is how we use what we and learned going forward. And for this session, we just want to finish with some thoughts about where we think what we've been doing takes us as a service and as an organisation, and what we've learned from the way challenges. So in Salford, we do our best to try and make every kind of customer engagement a pleasant and easy one, even when it's a legal process like a court hearing. 1 in 4 of the contacts that we got from customers in the court triage period has been using the service method. So really encouraging to see that it's something that our customers do want and welcome, and that the percentage of that is increasing as we're going along. It's practical, it's robust, it's effective, it's less personal, and for some people that really suits them. We've learned as a team that a little bit of risk taking is when you know you've proven confidence in in-house skills, the relationships, the technology, and for me that's a really, and I don't think we'll ever go back to doing things on savings with buck the trend and increased collection in what's been a really difficult year. And you know, we feel that we're really helping to prevent customer debt, which couldn't be more important than it is now. So we feel now to potentially be a long-term solution. Di, for you, what team's experience?
So from my team's experience, I'm actually amazed at how quickly the test and trace payments were set up here, and how the departments have all come together to help support each other at a very difficult time. We've been able to build a fully digital process, allowing customers to make claims on 24/7. And as the system wasn't 7, this has been a big help to the staff, because it's allowed flexibility to manage the whole life balance, especially those who have young children and who have had. We've worked collaboratively with authorities, initially agreeing. Although the scheme is set to end on the 30th of June, realistically this is going to be set. However, when the scheme does eventually end, I don't think there's going to be a long-term need or Thrive on my team, other than for the reporting mechanisms for the freedom of information, government data. It has all been an eye-opener to me, as well as how different departments support each other and share the skills to develop a solution, which has been easily changeable as and when we've needed to change it. Staff have worked with people whose paths they would probably never crossed, and it's a feel of camaraderie. Salford Council have values, and they are pride, passion, people and personal responsibility. And I can honestly say that staff have all been able to demonstrate how naturally it is to work towards these values. Jane, what about yourself?
Thanks, Di. So, well, over the past 15 months, we've all had to change the way we live and work. We've risen to the challenge and learned in a new and different way. Whilst we're still performing our roles effectively and continuing to deliver and support the delivery of it's evident that we've learned and developed new processes, we've improved digital skills, new ways of communicating, and constantly learning how to deal with change and be more resilient. And for those of us who have had to manage and lead our team in a completely different way to how we have done in the past. So by the 24th of March last year, all the business team and the inspectors were enabled from home. By the 6th of April, we were making our first grant payments. And today, we've actually paid out 82 million in grants to businesses in Salford. We have no backlog on grant applications and are now focusing on that final take-up to potential eligible businesses before the final closes on the 30th of June. In those audit checks in our process back in March 2020, it did inform us with the Thrive specification and actually prepared us for the post-payment assurance programme of activity, which is April this year, for the initial grant scheme, the retail, hospitality and small business grants, and it's expected this will be a continuing requirement for central government for all the other schemes, and we have the capabilities within Thrive to collate all that key data. We do understand it's difficult times for many businesses, and we wanted to ensure that they got all the help and support on offer, and therefore we promoted details about free independent advice available from Region's Business Support Agency, the Business Growth Hub, as I've previously mentioned. We also invited representations from the Business Growth Hub to provide overview to staff on what services they could offer businesses, and we thought this would be helpful for our colleagues when they were dealing with those calls with businesses that at least, whilst they may not have been eligible to grants or they may have needed additional support, we had that signposting in place. And actually this service has been expanded now into our virtual coffee and chat sessions. If a business requires, we will have and can have a representative from the Growth Hub in those discussions. We've formed new partnerships with public and private sectors and working across the region with other similar teams in local councils, and we've been in a position to provide a wraparound service. We're providing more than just grant support. We're looking at a business as a whole, and we're able to signpost to those different supports, whether it be for financial loans. The dedication and commitment by colleagues, it's just been absolutely amazing. We've come together as one fantastic Salford team, demonstrating the spirit of Salford in all that we do. And it's rewarding to know what a real difference we've made to our businesses and local economy. We've received some really heartwarming words of thanks from businesses, taking the time actually to acknowledge the work that we've done. It's now time to continue to look to the future as we begin our recovery from the devastating impact of COVID-19. This experience has given us that insight through engaging with colleagues, partners and businesses, and the achievements that we've made today in how our new operating will look. We can build on this success looking further around data sharing opportunities, interrelations with other service areas across the council, and continuing to benefit from that squad way of working, bringing together multidisciplined groups of people. And finally, I just want to close off on one final feature of the Thrive application, which is smart reporting. We future-proofed in the design. We built this around what potential reporting requirements would be, and also what we knew were those requirements for central government. And also internal reporting, such as performance, fraud risk assessment and post-payment assurance. Thrive provides us with smart reporting, which allows for financial reconciliation between our Thrive system and the SAP system, and the ability to meet various government reporting requirements, such as our monthly data abstract of grants paid out, using data that we've completing that application, how important that data is and how the Thrive system captures that and can actually generate and produce that intelligence for us. So we can provide bespoke reports out of the Thrive application. And to give an example of that, when the announcement for wet-led and the more recent restart grants was announced, Salford were very proactive in their approach. We used data held in the Thrive application, and we just mass emailed out to all potential eligible businesses. And on receipt of that communication, customers literally just needed to sign the virtual sign a declaration. We also used the same approach to follow up applicants who had not responded to previous comms, focusing heavily on grant take-up. So once the infrastructure, as we've proved, had been developed, we're able to react to the rapid changes and introduction of new support schemes, and we've enhanced the solution along the way. Thank you.
Great, thanks Jane, thanks Di. So now that we've shared our experience, I'm conscious that time's on and there are other sessions coming up at 3 o'clock, but just got a couple of questions. First one, ladies, what do you think you'd do differently if you had to start again? So let's hope we don't have to start again. But I mean, from my point of view, I don't think I would do it differently. I think everything we've done, obviously we've learned a lot of things along the way, but I feel really confident that what we've put into place for the court triage is really robust, and it's been a great learning experience to get there.
From my perspective, from the grant side, that experience when the grants were first announced at that critical time in March last year, a solution was developed, a quick win solution, but we built on that, we learned from that experience, and that really armed us with the information really to be able to develop the Thrive solution moving forward, and thankfully so, with the introduction of the ongoing grant schemes throughout the last 15 months.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't think I would probably have done anything different. I think the whole journey has been really sort of good for, it's a big learning curve. I mean, we've never had to go through as many changes within a small period of time as we have done over the last earlier. It is amazing how everybody's just pulled together, and we are one big team.
Great, thanks. I think we've probably only got time for one more really. Has working from home made the challenges easier or harder? Jane, do you want to go first on that?
I'd probably say both. Accessibility was a real positive, particularly tight time frames, working on solutions, working as a squad, quick outcomes. So that was a real positive. But I suppose the negative was that kind of availability, being available at all times, not having that cut-off point, I suppose, risk of burnout.
Mm.
Yeah, I suppose from my point of view, Kennedy, it's like Jane said, a bit of both. I think in the initial days, it was, it did hinder us because we had so many set-up issues, broadband issues, and that wasn't just a Salford Council thing, that was nationwide because of the demand on the broadband. But I think now with time's gone by, we're now realising that, the flexibility that staff have got, what's not to like about it. And I think that home working now is something that we will work with going forward, most definitely.
Yeah, and I think from my point of view, from what I've been speaking about, this wouldn't have happened if we hadn't have been at home. there's no way that we'd have moved something so entrenched in face-to-face contact to a digital offer. Had we been in the office, I don't think it ever would have happened.
Wow.
Okay, so thanks everyone for joining us today and for giving us the opportunity to share our experiences with you.